Hello, my friends, and it is time for another Bedtime Stories with Miss Hannah. So tonight I'm going to read some books to you that were on a TV show that I used to watch when I was a little girl called Reading Rainbow. So these are Reading Rainbow books. Now the first book I'm going to start with, that's a really awesome book, is called The Day Jimmy's Boa Ate the Wash. And it is by Trinka Hayes Noble, and it's illustrated by Stephen Kellogg. The Day Jimmy's Boa Ate the Wash. Do you know what a boa is? A boa is a snake. Can you see a snake in these pictures anywhere? Gee, I think I do in the corner. So let's start off and see what happens. Okay. So we start off. How was your class trip to the farm? Oh, boring. Kind of dull until the cow started crying. A cow? Crying? Yeah, you see, a haystack fell on her. But a haystack doesn't just fall over. It does if a farmer crashes into it with his tractor. Oh, come on, a farmer wouldn't do that. He would if he were too busy yelling at the pigs to get off our school bus. What were the pigs doing on the bus? Eating our lunches. Why were they eating your lunches? Because we threw their corn at each other, and they didn't have anything else to eat. Oh, look how sad the pigs look. Well, that makes sense, but why were you throwing corn? Because we ran out of eggs. Out of eggs? Why were you throwing eggs? Because of the boa constrictor. The boa constrictor? Yeah, Jimmy's pet boa constrictor. What was Jimmy's pet boa constrictor doing on the farm? Oh, he brought it to meet all the farm animals, but the chickens didn't like it. You mean he took it in the hen house? Yeah, and the chickens started squawking and flying around. Go on. What happened? Well, one hen got excited and laid an egg, and it landed on Jenny's head. The hen? No, the egg. And it broke, yucky, all over her hair. What did she do? She got mad because she thought Tommy threw it, so she threw one at him. What did Tommy do? Oh, he ducked and the egg hit Marianne in the face. So she threw one at Jenny, but she missed and hit Jimmy, who dropped his boa constrictor. Oh, and I know, the next thing you knew, everyone was throwing eggs, right? Right. And when you ran out of eggs, you threw the pigs corn. Right? Right again. Well, what finally stopped it? Well, we heard the farmer's wife screaming. Why was she screaming? We never found out because Miss Stanley made us get on the bus and we sort of left in a hurry without the boa constrictor. I bet Jimmy was sad because he left his pet boa constrictor. Oh, not really. We left in such a hurry that one of the pigs didn't get off the bus, so now he's a pet pig. That sure sounds like an exciting trip. Yeah, I suppose, if you're the kind of kid who likes class trips to the farm. That is the end of The Day Jimmy's Boa Ate the Wash. Now, my next book is called Leo the Late Bloomer, and it's by Robert Cross with pictures by Jose Arrugo. All right, ready? Ready for this one? All right, here we go. Leo the Late Bloomer. Look at poor little Leo. Leo couldn't do anything right. He couldn't read. He couldn't write. He couldn't draw. He was a sloppy eater. Look at Leo eating. So sloppy. And he never said a word. Whoo! Hiss! Beep! Crunch! Nothing. What's the matter with Leo? Asked Leo's father. Nothing, said Leo's mother. Leo is just a late bloomer. Better late than never, thought Leo's father. Every day, Leo's father watched him for signs of blooming. And every night, Leo's father watched him for signs of blooming. Are you sure Leo's a bloomer? Asked Leo's father. Patience, said Leo's mother. A watched bloomer doesn't bloom. So Leo's father watched television instead of Leo. Does it look like his daddy's watching TV? No, it looks like he's being sneaky. The snows came. Leo's father wasn't watching. But Leo, he still wasn't blooming. Oh, it looks to me like Leo's father might have been watching a little bit. The trees budded. Leo's father wasn't watching, but Leo still wasn't blooming. Does it look like Leo's father's not watching? I think he's watching. Then one day, in his own good time, Leo bloomed. He could read. He could write. What does that say, guys? Leo. In cursive even. He could draw. He ate neatly. He also spoke. And it wasn't just a word. It was a whole sentence. And that sentence was, I made it. The end of Leo the Late Bloomer. Now for my next book. This one's a little bit longer, and there was a movie made about this book. Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. And this one's written by Judy Barrett and drawn by Ron Barrett. So let's read Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. We were all sitting around the big kitchen table. It was Saturday morning, pancake morning. Mom was squeezing oranges for juice. Henry and I were betting on how many pancakes we could each eat, and Grandpa was doing the flipping. Seconds later, something flew through the air. I'll turn it out so you can see it. There we go. Seconds later, something flew through the air and headed towards the kitchen ceiling and landed right on Henry. After we realized that the flying object was only a pancake, we all laughed, even Grandpa. Breakfast continued quite uneventfully. all the other pancakes landed in the pan, and all of them were eaten, even the one that landed on Henry. That's a very big, pretty picture. It says, that night, touched off by the pancake incident at breakfast, Grandpa told us the best tall-tale bedtime story he'd ever told. Across an ocean, over lots of huge bumpy mountains, across 3 hot deserts and 1 smaller ocean, there lay the tiny town of Chew and Swallow. In most ways, it was very much like any other tiny town. It had a main street lined with stores, houses with trees and gardens all around them, a schoolhouse, about 300 people, and some assorted cats and dogs. But there were no food stores in the town of Chew and Swallow. They didn't need any. The sky supplied all the food they could possibly want. The only thing that was really different about Chew and Swallow was its weather. It came 3 times a day at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Everything that everyone ate came from the sky. Oh my. Do you see that? It says, whatever the weather served, that was what they ate. But it never rained rain. It never snowed snow. And it never blew just wind. It rained things like soup and juice. It snowed mashed potatoes and green peas. And sometimes the wind blew in storms of hamburgers. No, kitty. Okay. So, the people could watch the weather report on television in the morning, and they would even hear a prediction for the next day's food. When the townspeople went outside, they carried their plates, cups, glasses, forks, spoons, knives, and napkins with them. That way they would always be prepared for any kind of weather. If there were leftovers, and there usually were, the people took them home and put them in their refrigerators in case they got hungry between meals. The menu varied. By the time they woke up in the morning, breakfast was coming down. After a brief shower of orange juice, low clouds of sunny-side-up eggs moved in, followed by pieces of toast. Butter and jelly sprinkled down for the toast. And most of the time it rained milk afterwards. For lunch one day, frankfurters, already in their rolls, blew in from the northwest about 5 miles an hour. There were mustard clouds nearby. Then the wind shifted to the east and brought in baked beans. A drizzle of soda finished off the meal. Dinner one night consisted of lamb chops, becoming heavy at times with occasional ketchup. Periods of peas and baked potatoes were followed by gradual clearing with a wonderful jello setting in the west. The sanitation department of Chew and Swallow had a rather unusual job for a sanitation department. It had to remove the food that fell on the houses and sidewalks and lawns. The workers cleaned things up after every meal and fed all the dogs and cats. Then they emptied some of it into the surrounding oceans for the fish and turtles and whales to eat. The rest of the food was put back into the earth so the soil would be richer for the people's flower gardens. Life for townspeople was delicious until the weather took a turn for the worst. Chew and Swallow digest. Spaghetti ties up town. Record-breaking pasta fall causes chaos. Traffic snarled on lower Intestine Street. Goodness gracious. One day, there was nothing but gorgonzola cheese all day long. The next day, there was only broccoli, all overcooked. And the next day, there were Brussels sprouts and peanut butter with mayonnaise. Ugh. Another day, there was pea soup fog, and no one could see where they were going, and they could barely find the rest of the meal that got stuck in the fog. The food was getting larger and larger, and so were the portions. People were getting frightened. Violent storms blew up frequently, and awful things were happening. On Tuesday, there was a hurricane of bread and rolls all day long into the night. There were soft rolls and hard rolls, some with seeds, some without. There was white bread and rye and whole wheat toast. Most of it was larger than they'd ever seen, bread and rolls before. It was a terrible day. Everyone had to stay indoors. Roofs were damaged and the sanitation department was beside itself. The mess took the workers 4 days to clean, and the sea was full of floating rolls. To help out, the people piled up as much bread as they could in their backyards. The birds picked at it, but it just stayed there and got staler and staler. There was a storm of pancakes one morning and a downpour of maple syrup that nearly flooded the town. A huge pancake covered the school. No one could get it off because of its weight, so they had to close the school. Lunch one day brought 15-inch drifts of cream cheese and jelly sandwiches. Everyone ate themselves sick, and the day ended with a stomachache. There was an awful salt and pepper wind accompanied by an even worse tomato tornado. People were sneezing themselves silly and running to avoid the tomatoes. The town was a mess. There were seeds and pulp everywhere. The sanitation department gave up. The job was too big. Everyone feared for their lives. They couldn't go outside most of the time. Many houses have been badly damaged by giant meatballs. And stores were boarded up, and there was no more school for the children. So a decision was made to abandon the town of Chew and Swallow. It was a matter of survival. The people glued together giant pieces of a stale bread sandwich style with peanut butter, took the absolute necessities with them, and set sail on their rafts for new land. Now, after being afloat for a week, they finally reached a small coastal town, which welcomed them. The bread had held up surprisingly well enough for them to build temporary houses for themselves out of it. The children began school again, and the adults all tried to find places for themselves in the new land. The biggest change they had to make was getting used to buying food at a supermarket. They found it odd that food was kept on shelves, packaged in boxes, cans, and bottles. Meat that had to be cooked was kept in large refrigerators. Nothing came down from the sky except rain and snow. The clouds above their heads were not made of fried eggs. No one ever got hit by a hamburger again, and nobody dared go back to Chew and Swallow to find out what had happened. They were too afraid. Henry and I were awake until the very end of Grandpa's story. I remember his good night kiss. Next morning, we woke up to see snow falling outside our window. We ran downstairs for breakfast and ate it a little faster than usual so we could go sledding with Grandpa. It's funny, but even as we were sliding down the hill, we thought we saw a giant pat of butter at the top, and we could almost smell mashed potatoes. The end of Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. It's an interesting town, the town of Chew and Swallow. Well, guys, I hope you had a good time reading the stories with me, and I can't wait until I see you next week. Next week, we're going to read some more really good books, but until then, give your teeth a good brush and snuggle in tight tonight and sleep well. I'll see you soon.